Hello and welcome to Sports Room. I'm Anirudh Madhavan and with me is veteran journalist Ayaz Memon. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the opening match of the World Cup, what to expect from the India-Australia clash in Chennai, and of course, India's dominance at the Asian Games. So, first off, let's just start with the absolute demolition of the defending champions in Ahmedabad. England set New Zealand a target of 282, and the Kiwis got there with around 14 overs to spare. So, these World Cups are known to throw up stories, and undoubtedly the story of that match was this young man called Rachin Ravindra, who scored a brilliant 100. Devon Conway is one of the best opening batsmen going around, so he was expected to deliver. But what do you make of this young man?
I think, look, he played some amazing strokes, didn't he? I mean, the crisp timing and the style, the ease with which he countered. 282 wasn't a massive total, but it wasn't an easy task, so to speak, because, they still had the runs on the board. And England is a very strong team, as we know. But he just took them apart, didn't he? I mean, he gave it that, that momentum, the innings. And then, of course, Devon Conway brought all his experience to the fore. I thought that England kind of messed things up while batting. The pitch, the way it played, even 350 would not have been enough, but 350 would have put New Zealand a lot of pressure. I thought that they missed out on making 300 plus because every batsman got a start, didn't go on to play an innings of any big dimension except for Joe Root, who got a half century, and then of course he also threw his wicket away. So overall, I thought perhaps a little cocky England. I'm using that term very hesitantly because nobody is cocky at this level and in such a tournament. But they did seem to, it was a little too flamboyant, I think, their approach for the first game of the tournament, and they paid a heavy price. And you have to give credit to New Zealand. They are without Kane Williamson, without Tim Southey, and they put up an absolutely marvelous show.
Yeah, without Lockie Ferguson too. So yeah, they were missing quite a few of their players. But moving on from the match, I wanted to talk about the stadium, the look of the stadium, and there were a lot of empty stands, particularly in the afternoon. I mean, it was warm, but it's not a good look to start a World Cup with such a sight. So, do you think the organizers could or should have started with an India match?
I mean, if the convention is to start with the former, the champion of the defending champion or the two finalists of the previous game, there's not much you can do about it. But this is not a good spectacle at all. What you're saying is right. When you have a completely barren stadium, I mean, you had a few hundred, maybe a few thousand spectators at the start of the match, and that's a 110,000 capacity stadium, 110 or 115. So it looked very bare and sparse and hardly befitting a World Cup lung opener between two really strong teams. I thought that could have been managed a little better. I mean, it's not so difficult to get spectators into the ground. I'm not saying give away freebies, but in propagating the tournament and send the messaging if it is strong enough. But it also, reflects a bit on us as a sporting country, doesn't it? When you've got the World Cup being staged in India, and if these matches are going to go bereft of spectators, yes, I think India versus any other team will get you the packed crowds. But if you watched World Cup anywhere else in the world, in England in 2019, in Australia 2015, and so on, one of the things which caught your attention was the number of fans who came in for the love of the sport. And I hope and I wish we see more of that in the coming matches.
So, building on that point, do you think we as a country, we love cricket, the sport, or do we love India playing cricket?
It's a bit of both. I think surely India is the strongest factor in that equation. If India is not there, obviously to an extent that sentiment is understandable. You want to support your home team, but you also have to support the sport. And I think this is also the World Cup where the 50 over format is kind of struggling for survival as a format with T20, the invasion of T20 and the leagues. And then their desire to protect Test cricket, which is all fine, but if ODIs have to be kind of sustained or succored or given a lease of life, then if not in the World Cup, where will it happen?
So moving on to a match that will have a jam-packed house, that is India-Australia in Chennai on Sunday. So we're hearing that Shubman Gill apparently might miss the opener because he reportedly has dengue. So how much of a factor will that be?
That'll be a huge factor. It's a big match. I mean, in many ways, it's a bigger match than England versus New Zealand, though they were the finalists last time. But India versus Australia the home team playing, so you can expect a full house there in Chennai. Australia, one of the biggest teams in the tournament, and who won the World Cup the most number of times. And then you have this young batsman, Shubman Gill, who's been in such fantastic form over the past, well, even the recent past, he's been looking so magnificent. And if he's not there, it upsets the calculation. It upsets the settled batting order to at least till number 4 or 5. You still have to choose between the two wicket-keeper batsmen and so on. I mean, it's not reducing the strength necessarily of the Indian team, but it's upsetting in the rhythm that the team has been playing. And I think that, I mean, hopefully he'll recover swiftly and come back into the team, by the next match.
Yeah, and what about Australia? I mean, this is not a bilateral series; it's a World Cup. It's a cup they won 5 times. So do you expect them to show up, right?
Yes, and they've kind of swung into form on the eve of the tournament, as we know. They've got Maxwell in form. They've got David Warner in form. Some of their Josh Hazelwood has looked good. Mitchell Stark is really the key player for them. As much as Adam Zampa, one fast bowler and one spinner. I mean, Pat Cummins and Hazelwood will be consistent. We know Stark can be extremely erratic or expensive. On the other hand, he can be devastating, as we know. He's got a track record which is stupendous in white ball cricket, especially in ODIs. And Adam Zampa on these pitches should be looking for a lot more success. So this is a tough match. I think for both teams, it's important to get off to a winning start. That gives you the momentum. That I mean, there are some softer, easier teams you're going to play against. But if you don't win the big matches, or at least most of the big matches, then you could be in trouble. So both teams would want to get off to a flying start.
So talking of the World Cup, we of course cannot miss what's happening at the Asian Games. India have made it to the final, and it's been a rampage and dominating every game, as did the women. So, and we also saw that Pakistan lost the match to Afghanistan, which is again an upset. So, do you think there is, for all intents and purposes, this is India's A team? So, do you think there's a huge gap between India's A team and the others?
I mean, the gap would be there. Ultimately, the A team is the A team. But the B team, if you may call it that, is not bereft of talent. It's fantastic, the talent. And we're seeing it in the Asian Games. Look, the opposition isn't strong. But what also reflects is that the talent pool in countries like Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bangladesh is nothing to shout home about, The talent pool in India is fantastic. I mean, all these guys were there. Ruturaj Gaikwad, Jaiswal, Rinku Singh, Arshdeep Singh, and so on. They've been they're IPL stars already, so they have a fairly large, or fairly vast experience of playing big matches under pressure, and that is coming through very clearly. They're just dismissing the opponents. Look, the gold medal doesn't come on a platter. They still have to beat Afghanistan in the final, but on the evidence of what we've seen, the Indian team looks, a couple of notches higher than every other team.
Yeah, so hopefully India clinch that gold medal, and maybe that gives some inspiration to their counterparts who are playing in the World Cup. So that's it. That's it for this episode of Sports Room. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Anirudh. Thank you. Bye-bye.